All right, we're going to be doing Access Chapter 2. Before we start, just make sure you start reading the chapter on page 392. It has some information that you need to know in the very beginning there, and you'll need to download the A2D1 WinWeb design file from your Access Chapter 2 files in Canvas. Once you do that, you can get it open and then rename it. As your book states, you'll just start following the directions through that chapter and just stick the name revised after it. And I've done this a few times, so it asks me about it already existing. It won't ask you that. Now, just so you guys are aware, I am on a slightly different version of Access than they have at CMC. So my screen and my ribbon might look a little bit different than yours, but all the buttons work the same and they're all generally in the same area. So you should be able to find them pretty easily. Also, I tend to move a little fast when I'm working on the computer, so make sure that you pause when you need to catch up, and you can also rewind. Since this is a video, you should have a lot of freedom in going the pace that you need to. You can also slow down the speed of the video if you need to do that. That's a setting in YouTube down there on the playback speed, so you can check that out. All right, now we're starting on step 2, page 393 of Access Chapter 2. So this is all about forms, and if you click on employee spouses like it asks you to in number 2, and then you go to create and form, it will create a form based directly on whatever fields were in this table. So your book doesn't ask you to do this, but if I open the employee spouses table, you can see that I have these 4 fields, and that is where it made these forms from, the form boxes. All right, if I go to the view, form view, this is step 5, then I get a blinking cursor in there and I can edit things. Now it opened up in layout view. Notice that I don't have any blinking cursor in layout view. I switched back to how it was before. But in form view, like step 5 asks you to do, you can start editing things. Step 6 is asking you to go through the navigation at the bottom, and then you'll stop on record 2 and change this number. It was supposed to be 6767. Just so you know, you can edit stuff in there. And if I close this, it will ask me about saving. So I want to hit yes. And then this is the name we like. It takes the name right from the table you created it from. Sometimes you'll want to change that, but for now we're leaving it as it is. So that was just creating a simple form. The next thing we're going to do is create a form using the form wizard. We're going to do this based on the customers table. So real quick, if I open that up, you can see that I have several more fields than I had in the employee spouses field. So our form should look quite a bit different. So I'm going to close that table. I do want it based on customers, so make sure that is selected but not open. Then go to create. In the forms group, you'll have a form wizard button. Click on that. And then these are the options for which fields you might want in your form. So if you didn't want ID, for example, you wouldn't have to select that. But we want all of the fields, as your book states, and that's step 4 on page 394. So the little double arrow button gets all fields over into the form. You hit next, and these are just different layouts. Basically, the way it will look would be different. We're going to keep it at the top option. You can rename it here if you want, but we like that name, and we're going to click Finish. So this opens automatically in form view. You can see I have the blinking cursor, and I can edit it right here, and it lays it out pretty nicely, just very in columns, just like we asked it to. So to change things about this form, we either have to switch to layout view or design view. And you remember last week we did design view in our tables. You can do the same thing in forms, but for now we're going to work in the simpler one, layout view. So that's actually this button here. You don't have to click view, layout view, if the button you want is already up there. So I clicked the button, and then you can see I don't have blinking cursor anymore. So now I know that I am in layout view, and I can change things about this form. So these are labels here, and these are text boxes here. So I want to click in the label for street address, and I click one more time, and this is step 3 and 4 and 5 on page 394. I'm just editing that label, getting rid of the word address, and just keeping it at street. And then I'll make the other edits, the book requests, just by clicking twice on those labels. And then it asks us in step 8 to click on the notes text box. Now make sure you get that right. We're no longer working on this label. We've moved over to this text box. And we want to make this text box line up with the edge of the email text box. So I'm just going to move my mouse over till I get the double-sided arrow and pull it back so that it approximately matches the width of the email text box. I'm going to change the width of the state text box so that it'll hold just the 2 state abbreviation there, the 2 character abbreviation with a little bit of extra room. And then we can change the position of these labels in text boxes. We don't have to keep them exactly where they were. So let's do the notes text box. And actually, let's just grab all of them. I believe this is step, what step is this? 14, I think, on page 395. So I'm grabbing them all by holding the control key down after I click the first one, and then clicking the rest of these while the control key is held down. And then I can hit the left arrow key on my keyboard, and I can scoot these over closer to the labels. So it's just saving some space, which is kind of nice. And then let's take the telephone email. So I click telephone, hold the control key down, click email notes, and then the text boxes associated with them. Now you'll notice, because we scooted these text boxes over, that the labels look like they're overlapping when you actually click on them, but that's okay, it doesn't affect anything. So go ahead and select those, and then this time I'm taking my mouse, I'm holding the mouse button down and dragging it over. Now Access won't show you that you're dragging stuff, so you won't actually see it until you drop the mouse, just so you're aware. So if you're more comfortable using the arrow keys because you'll be able to see every step you take, you can do that as well. So we're just moving those over to the side, and if I click off of them, then they look normal without that overlap. That's why that overlap doesn't really matter. And then let's go ahead and save that. Just hit the save icon on the quick access toolbar. And then there's some information on page 396 that you should read. And this is now moving us into design view. So we've seen form view, where we can actually edit the text in a form. This here is layout view, where we can edit the layout pretty easily. Next we have design view. So I'm going to click the view arrow and choose design view. And in this title box here, I want to change this to Winchester customer. So I clicked it once, and then I clicked it once more to get my blinking cursor in there, and just put in Winchester customers instead. And then we want to use this thing called the property sheet, because we're going to precisely size, position, and format this title. So that's in your design tab up at the top. Property sheet button over here. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is change the width to 5.5 inches. So just type in 5.5 in that width box there, and then the left alignment we're going to change to 1.5 inches. So type in 1.5. The font is down here a little farther. That's going to be Lucida Calligraphy, and these are alphabetical in this list as well, so you can type in the L and get a head start, or just scroll to it and we want to change the size to 30. Okay, and you won't see each of these changes until you click out of the box that you're working in. So the next thing we want to do is change the font color. Right now it's this light gray, and you can change the font color of this just like we did in the other programs we've used by going to the Home tab, finding your font group here. You see the A with the underline, that's our font color, if you'll remember from our previous textbook examples, and just choose the color you want. I'm going to choose that dark blue, and then let's go ahead and go to some of these other things. Step 9, page 397 is where we are now, and if I click on the customer ID label, you'll notice over here in the property sheet it now says I'm looking at the properties for the customer ID label. Okay. Let's go ahead and select all the labels by holding the control key down again. Just the labels, not the text boxes. So we're leaving the text boxes alone. Notice it has multiple selection here, so it won't show any specific one in the property sheet if you have multiple ones selected. And to get these to be the same blue color as the title that's already in my A underline, I can just click the button and that changes those. So that's pretty straightforward. All right, the next thing we want to do is put the Winchester logo in our form header section. That's next to our title up here. So you'll need to go to Canvas and download the file wwd-logo.bmp. That's in your Access Chapter 2 folder. And we are going to go to the Design tab, Header and Footer group, and click the Logo button. And then once you download that, it should be in your Downloads folder. wwd-logo. Click OK. It comes in really small, so you'll need to come over to the property sheet and change that to 0.8, and then I just hit the down arrow key to get to height and change that to 0.8 as well, and then just click out of that box to see the changes. Alright, let's go ahead and switch to form view to see what this will look like as if we were actually using it. Alright, looks pretty decent. Alright, let's check out a few more things. We're now on step 16, page 398. We're switching back to design view. Click the form header section. That's just clicking on that gray area that says form header. Notice it says form header here, and we have information for that. If I click the details section, I could change background color, all kinds of stuff, so the property sheet comes up for that. I can also choose different elements of this form by clicking this drop down arrow. Like I could choose the whole form, for example. Okay, so lots of options there. Now in form view, actually I'm going to go ahead and close the property sheet for now and switch to form view. Notice if I hit tab on the keyboard, I go from box to box in a certain order. That's called your tab order, and that's in a description on page 398. You can read about that. If that tab order gets messed up, or I want it to be different than going through sequentially like this, then I need to go change that tab order. So I have to switch back to design view, and in the design tab, in the tools section, there is a big tab order button. So if I click that button, this is the current tab order. You'll go from here to here to here and so on. So I want to show you how this changes. If we click in the customer phone gray area and then click and drag it right below customer ID and click OK, and I go back to form view and I hit tab, watch what happens. I now move over to telephone because I just changed that to be second in the list, and then it will go through the rest normally. Again, telephone first, and then last name, first name, and so on. So you can really mess up that tab order, but the good news is you can also fix it, so it's good to know about that. All right, themes are the next thing. You guys are probably pretty used to themes from working in Excel and Word. They also are here in Access. So we're going to go back to Design View. Should bring you right to the Design tab, but if not, click on that and you'll see the big Themes button here, just like we're used to. So it does give you a live preview of what your different themes will look like. So just find one you like and choose that. Okay. And let's go back to form view to see how that looks. Okay, so it changed the font, a little bit of size, background colors, stuff like that. Okay, there's other types of forms you can create. So far we've done the basic form by clicking create and form, and then we've done a little more advanced form by clicking create form wizard. So there's a couple of others. Let's go ahead and close this form to get it out of our way. Save your changes. So read about these other types of forms starting on page 400, and then we'll go ahead and do these. So step 1, the bottom half of page 400, is to open this database, but you should already have it open. So move on to step 2. We're going to choose the customers table, so just make sure it's clicked on, and then go to the Create tab, the Forms group, the More Forms button, and choose multiple items. Now the multiple items gives you kind of a data sheet view of your form, so it's a little bit different. And this opened in layout view, so you can change these column widths once you get the double-sided arrow. So they come in kind of ridiculously large most of the time, so you would want to change these widths to make them more reasonable. And so the book will ask you to change these widths to see if you can fit the entire form on just one screen. So that's all we're doing here, is just making these narrower, seeing what we can fit. All right, that's pretty decent. That's, maybe we could create a new theme. Try a different one completely, even though I would keep the same one throughout the whole database. In this case, we're not. And then the book asks you to get rid of this little default logo there because it's ugly. So just clicked on it and hit delete on my keyboard. Now I can switch to form view and see what that looks like. Looks pretty good. So when I close it, I want to save it, but I want to name this customers multi-item and click OK. And the last thing in this chapter, it's a pretty short chapter, is to create a split form. And we'll go ahead and do that with the same customers table so you can see the difference. We're going to click create, more forms, split form, and you can see that you have the usual form view up there, but you also have kind of a copy of the table down here. And then we can get rid of this default picture up there just like we did last time. And that's pretty well the end of Access Chapter 2. So remember, pause, rewind as you need to get this video done. You can get your own file done and turned in for your class activity. And call or text me if you have any questions. The last thing to finish this up is to close this form. Save it as customers this one's going to be customers split form, excuse me. Split form. All right, you're all done. Make sure you submit it, your class activity, and do your quiz and homework. Have a great week.